Just saying. This here's my mom's. My mom's. This. Oh! I am so excited about this episode, I can't even tell you. Because I got props. No, nobody called and told me I'm cool. I'm not those kind of props. I'm not telling you you're cool. You are, but I'm not saying that right now. I'm talking about actual physical things that I'm going to use to help explain technology evolutions. These are the coolest things. I love history, and I love watching technology go from point to point to point. Oh, hi, I'm Joe Scacciaferra, CEO and creator of Faro City. So sometimes new technology or an evolution of technology presents creatives with a new tool or a new outlet for them to create in. Then there are some technology evolutions that have no real effect on creatives at all, even if this technology is directly related to the field that they express in. This episode, we're going to talk about a technology evolution that existed in a creative field but had no direct effect on a creative's expression. That technology is the recording industry. I love ripping through history. So if I get lost or I start getting caught in all kinds of details that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about, raise your hand, tell me to shut up, move on, and get to the point. 1877, Thomas Edison invented the phonograph. So for the first time ever, we were able to record and play back audio. Audio's sound, audio's music, audio's spoken word, anything audio. Edison's device looked nothing like what we know phonographs to look like today. Edison's device looked like a round tube or a cylinder, and it recorded on the metal type. It was almost aluminum foil that you kind of put over the top. Then in 1890, Emil Berlinger invented a flat disc version of Edison's technology, or his phonograph. That flat disc technology is still in use today, which is what, a century and change later? That's awesome. Invent one thing and have it last that long. These flat discs could hold up about 3-4 minutes of audio, which was usually music. Maybe that's why commercial music today is still about 3 minutes long. Maybe, who knows? But you know, a lot of times we do things because, well, that's just the way it's been done. Never because it makes any sense anymore for whatever we're doing. But another story. So Berlinger also invented a method of mass producing these discs, which in turn lowered the price on the discs. That in turn drove the market from a novelty to a must-have technology. So for the first time, people could listen to their favorite songs over and over at home. Sounds kind of nuts now, but back then, that was major. Since these discs were recorded at 78 revolutions per minute, or 78 RPMs, the phonographs that they played back on needed to spin the discs at 78s. So that way, the playback sound sounded the same pitch, the same tempo, the same everything that it was recorded on. These discs became known as 78s. This here's my mom's. My mom had a huge record collection of 78s. Since 78s were made from shellac rosin, they were thick, brittle, and ridiculously heavy. Look at this. Oh, good thing that wasn't one of hers. So around 1949, vinyl records entered the picture. Why? Well, basically because during World War II, shellac rosin was used by the government to make explosives. So the government, of course, scooped up all the raw materials. The record companies weren't going to give up their new business that was starting to really blow up for them. So they had to find another material to make these records. Oh yeah, back then, record companies actually pressed their own records and were producing their own inexpensive phonographs. Now, that sounds weird. Why would a record company do that? Well, not really. Think about it. They're smart, not stupid. The more people that owned phonographs, the more records they could sell. More records, more money, because that's where the money was. So they ended up finding a material called vinyl. And since 78s could only play a song or two, they figured the new vinyl records only had to play a couple of songs. Prop number 2. In walked the era of 45s. Look, flexible, don't break, real light. Okay, so, oh, by the way, these came from one of my older sisters. Why 45s? Because it spun at 45 RPMs. Why did it spin at 45 RPMs? Because that's how it was recorded. These guys may have been great at inventing, but they sucked at naming products. 78, 45, come on. Put a little oomph into it. Okay, keep going. So 45s gave way to a larger disc. Long plays. Why were they long plays? Because they played long. Look how flexible these bad boys were, right? Long plays got shortened. Oh, by the way, Gender Blenders. Old album. Been around a long time. Okay, long plays got shortened to LPs. These LPs were also called 33s. Why? God, take a guess. None of these guys got any smarter at marketing or making up names. Yup. They spun at 33 RPMs. All right, I see hands going up. So I'll get moving. All right, so vinyl gave way to tape formats. The first of these were, let me move my British import album out of the way. The first format were reel-to-reels. These are tapes. This is tape. Some of you don't know what tape is. These were reel-to-reels. Reel-to-reels ended up giving way to something called 8-tracks. I tried to find 8-tracks. I couldn't find them. They are about this big, and they had tape wound around inside it. Why were they 8-tracks? Because that's how they played. All right? 8-tracks eventually gave way to cassettes. Cassettes, this is cool. This cassette played as much music as this album. Which do you want to play in your car? This? Which do you want to walk around the streets of New York with? This? Tape. Cassettes were it. So, moving on. Tape gave way to a new technology called digital. These recordings were called CDs. Why CDs? Because they were compact discs. Of course, they still sucked at names. I can't believe this whole evolution. They still can't come up with cool names. So anyway, CDs were replaced by these little guys, MP3 players. MP3 is short for MPEG Audio Layer 3, which stands for Motion Picture Expert Group. Thank God they didn't go with that name, right? Okay. MP3s were replaced by everything, especially smartphones. MP3s, you all know what an MP3 is. It's in everything we do today. All right. So what does this have to do with anything? The point is that throughout all that entire technology evolution, musicians were unfazed by this evolution. This technology did not affect them at all, for the most part. Musicians were only responsible for writing and performing music. Like from the 1800s on, that's all they were responsible for doing. Even though the world that sold and played their music changed drastically. That change had little or no effect on their creating music. They still had to go into a studio, they still had to play their music, they still had to stand there, write songs, and that's all they did. There was a whole complement of other people dealing with the technology. So there you have it, a massive change in a creative industry that had no direct effect on creatives. All right, here we go. Check back, and I'm going to give you a peek at the other side. A technology evolution that directly affected creatives and why all this is important to your career. It really is, actually. These two subjects, you have to understand them. All right, I know you hate this, the to be continued. I hate it, but I'm doing it anyway. Check back, another episode. I'm going to go over the other stuff for you. The two episodes together will make total sense when you're trying to figure out how this affects your career. All right? Ciao. I'm Joe Scacciaferro. Just saying.